Hello there. Welcome to the Saroy channel, wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. For those of you that like to get to the juicy story where you have the straightforward Bigfoot encounter, well, I've got that for you on this channel right now. But the full stories are really worth listening to, and I've got them listed at the bottom, because really, just the Bigfoot encounter without the whole experience from the beginning to the middle and the end is really worth listening to. But if you just want to get to the juicy encounter that people have sent in to me, by all means, here are a few examples of them right now on my channel. So get straight into the business, shall we? And let's get started.
I made a face behind my mother's back because I thought my parents were boring and pathetic and just taking their faith way too seriously. Did God have no sense of humour or fun, I wondered. Bear in mind that all my friends staying over at my house for a sleepover had never ever been allowed to celebrate Halloween for a day in their lives, and we all decided that this year things would be incredibly different. My friend Jenny had hired 4 Halloween costumes for us, and we had brought sweets and snacks. We were planning to have our own Halloween celebration in the woods, where the hiker trail is on my land. We would slip out during the night after my parents had fallen asleep, and we didn't even need to use the front door because I was fortunate enough to have a large sliding window in my bedroom that gave us easy access in and out of doors, and it was only 3 feet off the ground. We would also stuff our beds with pillows in case my parents looked in on us so that it would look like we were all very much asleep. It was a trick that had worked well for me in the past and had never once let me down. Fast forward to midnight on Halloween, and my house was literally filled with the sound of silence, apart from the excited whispers from me and my 4 friends, who were counting the minutes until the witching hour. And for us, the excitement level was off the charts, because we were doing something that would horrify our parents if they were to find out. It was so exciting dressing up in witches' costumes and putting on green lipstick on my face, an ugly black mole, very white makeup and thick black eyeliner. We all looked amazing in our Halloween costumes, even if I say so myself, and when it was midnight we quietly slid out of my bedroom window and climbed out very carefully, taking care not to make any noise, and we wore headlights on our heads and gathered our bags of goodies as we ran into the woods, sprinting down the hiking trail as fast as we possibly could. As we entered the woods, we found it to be unusually quiet, which was a little unsettling, but that was all right because tonight was all about being very scared. That's what we wanted because it was Halloween. We heard no crickets, frogs or even owl calls as it was incredibly still, and although none of us expressed any anxiety, I think we were a little bit on edge as we did feel something was distinctly off, but no one was prepared to admit that. We could see clearly because thankfully the forest canopy was open enough to allow the moonlight from the pearly white moon and silvery stars to send pretty shafts of light onto the forest floor. We managed to find an open clearing where we laid down a cloth on the ground and prepared a midnight feast that really was designed to celebrate Halloween. We had monster potato chips, spider jelly sweets, black ice cookies decorated with monsters, and we quite literally had the works. We sat there on the forest floor dressed in our Halloween costumes and taking turns to try and scare each other with strange acts. We were all laughing, screaming and giggling at all our actions, and some of them were quite frightening, even if I say so myself. I got up to prepare my own little witch's act, designed to scare everyone half to death, and I was really getting into the part when suddenly we heard this galloping sound. It was as if a ton of horses were bolting through the forest all at once. Our first reaction was to hide. "Something's coming," I said. "Hide now!" Whatever was coming towards us sounded dangerous, like you needed to get out of the way because these things were monstrously huge, and I think we sensed danger. We all immediately hid behind this huge tree, which had a girth so big that all 4 of us could take cover behind the trunk, with relative ease, I'm glad to say. Then we saw them, and it was a them. 3 monstrous creatures, the likes of such that I have never ever seen before. And they were quite literally monsters that looked like they had descended from the depths of hell itself. In that moment, I did begin to wonder if someone was playing a horrifyingly sick joke on us to scare us half to death. I looked at my friends suspiciously, examining their expressions to see if they were showing any signs of giggling, which would be clearly evident if they were trying to suppress any giggles. All the white faces of my friends were a picture of absolute horror, so what we were seeing was clearly authentic and was not a prank. They were as shocked, appalled and horrified by what we were seeing as indeed I was. I studied the creatures clearly from where we were hiding, and then I realised very suddenly that they were Bigfoots. I had seen television coverage about these creatures before, and my father had assured me that it was all fictitious and there was no such thing as Bigfoot. But he was wrong, as he was about many things. I was in no doubt that we were staring at Sasquatches. These hairy humanoid giants have got to be the most terrifying creatures I have ever seen in my entire life, because they were utterly colossal. I think that's what got me the most, is the sheer size of these things. They were burly, wide and thick. I would say they range between 8 and 10 feet tall, about 4 feet wide, and between 800 to 1,000 pounds, and that's not exaggerating. They were covered in black thick hair and had cone-shaped heads that literally blended in seamlessly to the most monstrous bulky shoulders that you've ever seen in your entire life. Hiding there behind the tree, I felt equally as frightened and intimidated as I think I would possibly feel if I was in close proximity to a rhino or a lion, especially if they were sniffing around me. These creatures were on a par with those major dangerous predators, and I'm not joking when I say that either. They also did smell foul, like garbage, death and decay. The largest of the Bigfoots was sniffing the air, and I realised suddenly that he was smelling us. I was trembling violently, my heart was thumping and pounding in my chest, and I was incapable of making a decision in that moment. Should we hightail it out of the forest as fast as we could, or should we just stay still and hope with all our hearts that these creatures didn't notice us? The Bigfoot stumbled across our cloth, and he picked it up off the ground and scattered all our picnic goodies all over the forest floor. When he lifted the cloth to his nose, he let out the most terrible thunderous roar that went right through us. Truly, my whole body vibrated under its noise. He then proceeded to shred our cloth into pieces as if it was nothing. Now that is difficult to do. He lifted up some of the jello spiders, smelt them and threw them across the forest floor with a look of total disgust and revulsion on his face. He clearly did not appreciate jello spiders. I knew the creature sensed our presence because he was roaring and thumping his chest violently and clearly expressing his extreme dominance. The other two creatures began to roar, as if inspired by his lead, and I began to feel as if I was in a lion's den. "We have to run," I whispered to my friends, "because those creatures, they're going to kill us." Carol looked at me in terror. "I can't run," she said. "I'm shaking so much, and I feel as if I've got no strength left in my body. You can't make me run." "But we have to run," I said. "They're going to kill us." Suddenly we just started to run. There was just no word for it, we just had to run. And then we heard these monstrous heavy feet thundering behind us. I could sense something grabbing me from behind. But he'd got hold of my huge witch's hat, and thankfully not me. I continued to run faster than I've ever run in my life, and I looked back ever so briefly to see the creature studying my witch's hat, as if he was trying to make sense of the long triangular funnel shape, and the distraction was giving us a distinct advantage as far as our escaping was concerned. I even saw the creature attempting to put my witch's hat on his head, and it would have been funny if we weren't just so terrified. "Throw your hats on the ground," I instructed as we ran. I saw my friends throwing off their hats, and I could see the dark, hairy, humanoid creatures running towards the items and examining them with a curious interest. The distraction appeared to be working, and it gave us enough time to get back into my bedroom window. We were panting and breathing heavily because we were so out of breath. We could see the Bigfoots moving towards my house, but they were not in any rush and appeared to start walking slowly, and they were caught up in a discussion about our hats. We could hear them chattering backwards and forwards to each other. It was like they were passing the hats around and examining the shining material and sparkling bling, especially the princess silvery crown Julia had been wearing. The hats became an earnest topic of interested conversation among the Bigfoots, and they began to chatter excitedly among themselves and turned around, walking back into the forest, holding all our hats as if they were trophies of some kind. I really believe our strange hats were such a powerful distraction and diversion that they completely forgot about us. I don't know whether they would have actually hurt us or not, but they certainly scared the living hell out of us. And after that event, we were quite happy to spend our Halloweens eating pizza and having an early night. I think even my parents wondered why I never made a fuss about Halloween ever again. So there you are. That's my very peculiar story. But I never ever told my parents about my Bigfoot encounter. But let me assure you of this. Those creatures are indeed real, because I've seen them myself. They're probably out there in the forest right now, as I speak. I have been told by people who know more about Bigfoot than I do that the creatures that I encountered were just being territorial and probably would never have hurt me.
So there we are. That's the juicy bits of our stories tonight. I personally think you should go back and listen to the whole story because it makes it so much more exciting, because then you learn all about where it happened, the location, and all about the fabulous characters involved in the story. And that makes the story so much more gripping. But as I say so, go down to the description and then click on to the YouTube link, and then you will hear the whole story. Until next time, goodbye and good night.